Welcome back to Afternoon Live. Our next guest was a 33-year-old healthy and busy wife and mom of 3 young children when she first came down with COVID. Little did she know her battle with the virus would result in a life-threatening heart complication. Here to tell her incredible story, we welcome Hillary Steffen. Great to meet you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And we are celebrating a healthy 2 years of health for you.
Yes.
I'm happy that we have good news to share today.
Thank you, me too.
Take me back to the beginning though, because you initially came down with what was seemingly a run-of-the-mill case of COVID.
Yes, so it was November of 21. My 2 oldest children were 7 and 4 at the time, and they both had just low-grade fevers. It only lasted 24 hours, but 4 days later, I came down with a low-grade fever and just heavy fatigue. I was so tired.
Yeah.
And then I battled that fever for a few days, and then by the end of that week, I lost my smell and taste. So we were like, it's probably COVID.
Right.
But then I woke up in the middle of the night and also had mastitis. I had been nursing my 7-month-old at the time. And then that next day, it was like I'm battling 2 things, and I ended up waking up on the ground in the middle of the night on all 4. My arms were tingling and numb, and I just felt nauseous. And my husband came down over to me. He's a firefighter and paramedic, so grateful he was home. But he said, "Your lips are blue. Are you breathing okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm breathing just fine, but I just feel really nauseous." And so he ended up getting me a snack. I was able to eat a snack and go back to sleep. But the next day, I had these episodes again where my arms were tingling and numb. We didn't know what was going on. We ended up getting the prescription for mastitis, and then while he was gone, my symptoms just developed further. I started vomiting, and he tried hooking me up to IV fluid and giving me some fluid, and I had no change in symptoms. So we decided at that point it was probably best if I went to the hospital.
And that was after so many days of all these different things happening. What was that like when you first got to the hospital, and then you were still trying to figure some things out at that point?
Yeah, at that point, I then am going to the hospital by myself. My husband's taking care of our kids and transporting them off to family. And I get there and I'm starting to go in and out of consciousness. They're asking me all different questions like, okay, are you allergic to any meds? Have you taken anything lately? Are you on drugs? Like all these different things. And I was on no medications, had no health problems or anything, and no allergies. And they tested me for COVID, realized it was COVID, but still I wasn't like displaying those types of symptoms. But my husband arrived. He said they ended up rolling in the code cart. I was just swelling from all the fluid that I'd been given.
Oh my goodness.
And then took me up, ended up doing an ultrasound on my heart and figuring out that my heart was failing pretty severely.
Wow.
My ejection fraction was less than 10%, and a normal one is between 50 to 75%.
Okay. So at that point, was it likely that you were going to need a transplant?
So not yet. At that point, it was like possible that I was going to code and die. And thankfully, they did quickly take me in for a procedure, and they put in what was called an Impella heart pump, and it's this tiny pump that went through my femoral artery up into my heart, and it did the pumping for my heart. But at that point, they also realized this might not be enough, so they transported me up to Providence St. Vincent's here in Portland, and they put in a bigger heart pump and took that one out, so I had one put up in here. And then it was at this point I went into isolation because this was during Delta, and was away from my kids and my husband, and this is when the doctors were coming in and saying, okay, this heart pump is supposed to allow your heart to recover or just to rest and then hopefully recover, but if it doesn't recover, you're going to need a heart transplant.
And you're going through all of this in isolation, as you said, not having that connection with your loved ones around you. That must have been so scary.
It was scary, and you know, in some ways, like, because I was on so many medications and there's so much going on, I don't think I began processing so much of it until afterward, or like later into the weeks that I was in there. But thankfully, after 2 weeks in there, you know, my husband was able to figure out where my window was. He would come to my window.
See photos here of him standing outside waving to you in there.
Yeah, so he figured out where my window was. He would come every morning and we would FaceTime each other, and that like got me from my bed to my chair and motivated me to get up and move. But yeah, after 2 weeks, they came in and did another ultrasound and said, your heart has recovered. Like,
oh my goodness.
We're gonna get this heart pump out and you don't need a transplant.
How incredible was that moment? I mean, you probably didn't even believe them.
Yes.
You said, I'm sorry, what?
Yes, I just cried. I was so ecstatic and so happy, and you know, I didn't know what recovery would look like, but I was just grateful that I wasn't going to need that. I'm grateful that heart transplants are something that we have, and that was going to be an option for me, you know, and that beats death. But I'm so grateful that I was able to keep my heart and recover.
And then reuniting with your kids after all that, I mean, I bet you can't even describe that moment.
Yeah, it's highly, highly emotional. I was very grateful. My kids were able to come and visit me once I got out of isolation, and then like 4 days later, I was able to be discharged and go home to them.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I spent 20 days in the hospital total.
Yeah, but for all that to happen, that's a pretty short span of time.
I know, it really is.
So now you're sharing your story. You've got Instagram and a big community following you, because this is really about raising awareness for women's heart health.
Yes, I had no idea that somebody my age, I was only 33 years old, healthy. I had been a collegiate athlete. I didn't know that a virus could cause heart failure in somebody like that. You know, when I think of heart failure, I think of like smoking and poor, you know, food choices and things like that, diet. And so I just didn't know that this could happen. But since sharing my story a lot, I've met so many other people, men and women included, younger than me, older than me, all across the board, who've now experienced it from all different types of viruses. And sometimes it leads to a transplant, and others are able to recover like me. And so, yeah, I'm just really grateful.
Yeah, and it's just wonderful to share that message and for people to know that this is something to watch for. And if you have those scary symptoms, don't wait.
Absolutely.
What's life like for you right now?
It's great. I think when you go through like a near-death experience like that, your perspective changes. I mean, it has to, because now I just have this zest for life and zeal for it, and I just soak up and have so much gratitude for the small mundane things that I maybe didn't recognize before.
For sure.
But yeah, I take my health very seriously, I exercise a lot, and just try to bring awareness to this.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing all that. I mean, it's a lot to go through, just your own journey alone, and then opening up to share with others is such a gift. It was great to meet you. Thank you so
Hannah.
much.
You too.
Happy holidays.
Thank you, you too.
We'll have more information on our website at ka2u.com, and we'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.